All right, everybody. We're going to kick things off with our first speaker. And how this is going to work, we got our man Dylan Spina coming up here, and then we're going to take a 5-minute break, bathroom, get some refreshments. We're going to come back, and we'll go into our second speaker, Alex Feinberg. But our first speaker today, I have personally seen this man carry a 300-pound sandbag to the point of passing out. I've seen this man finish an Ironman race with 2 cramped legs. I've seen this man finish ultra marathons battling GI pain, cramping, blisters. This guy is the definition of doing hard things. He lives and breathes it. His spirit radiates it. And now you're gonna see a glimpse of the legend that is Dylan Spina. So, join me in welcoming to the stage my man, Dylan Spina.
Woo! Thank you so much, guys. What's going on, everybody? Before I start today, I just want to take a quick minute to thank every single one of you for taking time out of your busy schedules to be here in beautiful Colorado Springs, Colorado, to learn, grow, connect under the name of Do Hard Things. And to Zach, PD, and Peak City Church, thank you so much for putting this together and creating that space. As some of you guys do know, I have an extensive background in nutrition. So today's talk, yes, it will revolve around nutrition, but I promise you, it won't be any old boring high school lecture that you guys sat through before. We won't talk much about calories, we won't talk much about nutrients, we won't even talk about what eating healthy looks like or what a healthy diet looks like. The reason being is I'm willing to bet if I ask any single one of you guys right now, or hell, anybody on the street, what a healthy diet looks like, I'll hear a few of the same things. Eat plenty of protein. Eat your fruits and vegetables. Drink your water. Some very basic common knowledge we all understand to be true. But yet, when we look at the statistics, the American adult population, we see that 70% of them are overweight or obese. Now for our children, within a few years, 1 out of every 2 children in the United States will be obese. Now, zooming out of America, 1 out of every 8 people on this earth, walking on this earth right now, is considered overweight. So if this knowledge is so easy to understand, why are so many of us grossly overweight? My hypothesis is, it's not a knowledge problem, it's an application issue. Because how many times have you yourself experienced this? You lose weight, and relatively quickly, you gain it back. You've seen a loved one, family member, coworker, friend, go through a weight loss journey, and then within a few months, they put it right back on. Now, when we look at the statistics and we look at weight loss study follow-ups, we see that within 3 years' time, 95% of people who lose weight gain it back plus some within those 3 years. Now, another way to hear that statistic, only 1 out of every 20 people who attempt to lose weight and do so keep it on long term. Now, I know this to be true because I'm one of them. As you guys know, my name is Dylan Spina, but all the homies call me D. For over half my life at this point, I've been obsessed with everything and anything I can learn about nutrition. I've studied, applied the principles, conducted community and laboratory research, coached health and fitness for well over the past 15 years. I've earned the title of United States Marine Corps Sergeant, where I was put in charge of the body composition platoon filled with overweight Marines who do not meet the height and weight standards required of them by the United States Marine Corps. I have a bachelor's degree in nutritional science and dietetics, and I went on to grad school for about a year at Oklahoma State University before realizing, man, I didn't want to work in a hospital as a dietitian. I wanted to work with individuals who wanted to help themselves. I've competed in powerlifting, strongman, Ironman triathlon. I got the tattoo to prove it. And now have a wild obsession with running very far distances. 10 years ago, who would have thought? Not me. See, I grew up the grandson to an Italian immigrant. My grandfather, he came over the boat in 1954. He worked 3 jobs just to put food on his table for his wife and 6 boys. Eventually working hard enough to run his own business, a delicatessen of all things. He instilled in the Spina family the values of hard work, honesty, loyalty, integrity, and above all, enjoy your good food and appreciate your family. Every summer as a child, I spent a few weeks with him and my grandmother. I'd come back home to my mother and father weighing 20 to 30 pounds heavier. Let me say that again. Few weeks, 20 to 30 pounds heavier. He was a good cook. See, as far back as I can remember, I was overweight or fat. In 3rd grade, I remember weighing in at 93 pounds. I looked this up for this speech. Statistically speaking, that put me heavier than 97% of boys at that age. At 10 years old, I grew up on the Jersey Shore, and no, it's not like the show, but I got called a beach whale swimming in the ocean by 2 teenage girls nearby. And it's in that moment right there that I ever felt shame about my body. It was the first time. Growing up, my neighborhood friends, I'd play basketball with them. They called me Chubby Lumpkins and asked me to do the truffle shuffle so they could laugh and I could feel some love and acceptance I was in search for. Now, even as a United States Marine Corps sergeant, I was fat. I got that billet in charge of the body composition platoon because my commanders knew I had a wild obsession about nutrition and I trained my ass off every day. Now, I mentioned my grandfather earlier because he is the catalyst into why I became so obsessed with nutrition. He was a stereotypical Italian. He loved cooking, and he was morbidly obese. I can remember those summer nights sitting in the kitchen watching him make sauce or something, whatever it was, you know, Italians do as Italians do, and talking about what he had going on the next day. He mentioned he had to go see a diet doctor, which later find out was a registered dietitian. The next day at dinner, we'd be talking about what that diet doctor told him. He would be sharing me all this information because he knew I was struggling with weight myself. Only for us to pound a bunch of sugar-free cookies because as a diabetic, they were deemed healthy. It was Mother's Day of 2011, was the last time I saw him. That following Thursday, I was playing video games upstairs in my room, and the phone rings around 2:30. About 30 seconds after my mom picks up, I hear a blood-curdling scream, "No." I go downstairs to check on my mom, "What's going on?" And that's when I found out the Spina family just lost their patriarchal leader, and I lost my best friend. It was with tears in my eyes that night, I made a promise to myself that if I could help it, no other Spina member, no other Spina man would suffer the same fate. And that is when I dove headfirst into everything and anything I could get my hands on with nutrition. And this is when I started to conceptualize that this may not just be a knowledge problem. Because even as I lost weight, I put it right back on. I'd be able to use the excuse of going to lift heavy or train hard for football to come back home and eat some more. If I was stressed or sad, food was a very comfort drug I craved. Now, if there was a reason for celebration, you bet your ass I was downing 3 bowls of ice cream because you know what? I deserved it, right? I'd binge, I'd feel shame, I'd go for a run or train very hard just to come back and eat some more. I was stuck in a vicious cycle of this. I was letting my emotions dictate my actions. All this to lead me to feel more negative about myself and how I looked and how others perceived me. All this knowledge I was gathering, I couldn't figure my shit out. Now let's fast forward a few years. I'm living in Indianapolis, Indiana, training at Iron Valley Barbell, absolutely peaking in strongman, having the best time of my life, and to all my friends, now we jokingly refer to as the glory days, right? In March of that year, I got an elbow infection. I couldn't overhead press, I couldn't bench press, hell, I couldn't even carry dumbbells around the gym. My training ceased, but my eating did not. I remember one night walking upstairs to go put socks on, we were going out to go somewhere, sitting on my bed and gasping for air. I had this thought in my head, man, like, dang, it's gonna be a while till I train again. How pathetic was it that I, as a nutritionist and trainer, was gassed doing the very basic human functions. See, at this time I had this habit of snacking every night. Boxes of Rice Krispie cereals, sleeves of my roommate's cookies, even cold butter sandwiches. Now, I'm not talking like spreadable butter between two slices of toast, right? I'm talking chunks, tablespoons of butter between two soft white pieces of bread. You should try it sometimes if you need to gain weight. Every night, 1,000+ calories down the hatch. No matter how full I was from dinner, I ate. See, food brought me so much pleasure in that moment, but never any of the peace I was searching for. I'd binge, I'd wake up, feel shameful, feel guilty, feel remorseful in my actions. I was disgusted at what I saw in the mirror, no matter how hard I flexed, no matter how hard I sucked in that belly. I remember one night, a few weeks after that elbow infection hit, standing in the refrigerator door that night, wide open. What was I going to eat? And I remember hearing this voice in my head. Now, I heard this voice plenty of times before, but I never paid it any mind. But tonight, for whatever reason, this guy was loud. He was screaming at me, "Brother, what are you doing? You do not need to eat. You are full as can be. You know what you're about to do isn't going to serve you anymore. You're disgusted in how you look. You're fat." There's some worse things that were said there for sure. "Why don't you just close the refrigerator door and go upstairs? How hard is that? What is on the other side? What is the bad thing on the other side? Just do it. See what happens." For whatever reason that night, I was like, you know what? Let's challenge the status quo. I closed that refrigerator door and walked my ass upstairs. I woke up the next morning a lot more rested, way less bloated, and so much more confident. I felt so good that morning, I said, hell yeah, let's do it again tonight. I carried that confidence to that nighttime, the next night, the next night, the next night, and Saturday night hit. Under the influence of some devil's lettuce, I put down 2 pints of Ben & Jerry's. Don't ask me the flavors, all right? I realized that at that moment, I felt a little guilt. But something clicked. I said, hey, dude, this is the first time you did this all week. I was learning to gain control. I was no longer regressing as hard. I was finally starting to make progression into where I wanted it to be. Now, we all know around this time in early 2020 is when the pandemic hit. Slowed things down for all of us, but created so much anxious energy. I remember leaving the house simply to get breathing room from my roommates. I love them to death, sorry, Jay, but I needed to get that breathing room. I realized I was going on those walks, my mind started to feel a lot better, a little less anxious. What I also realized, I was waking up with a lot of anxious energy. So I challenged myself. The moment I woke up, I sat up in bed, opened my eyes, set an alarm for 10 minutes. I did not try to move a muscle, not even try to scratch an itch. I just focused on my breath. And what I realized by doing that, my anxious energy went away. Those anxious thoughts went away. And it led me to create better decisions throughout the rest of the day. Now, I will admit, it did help that my friend group was doing similar things. Mindfulness work, breath works, meditation. Starting to sit in ice baths, cold lakes and that, man, it didn't seem so taboo. It was also around this time I started learning about value-based mindfulness. And through value-based mindfulness and through reading about it, I came upon this story, an old Cherokee wives' tale. Now, this story is so impactful, I said, hell, I'm going to print it out for each one of you guys to take home. As a matter of fact, it is framed above my toilet. So every morning I use the bathroom, I'm reading this story. And to give you a little synopsis right here about this story, because it's so impactful, I want to share it. There's an old Cherokee grandfather talking to his grandson. He says to his grandson, there's a battle going inside within me, within every single one of us. It's a battle between a good wolf and a bad wolf. Now, this good wolf is filled with all these positives, values, habits, characteristics, and attributes. Love, joy, peace, humility. Now, that bad wolf, full of the complete opposite, all those negative values, habits, characteristics, and attributes. Lust, greed, envy, gluttony, sloth. As the grandfather tells this story, he takes a break. The grandson takes a chance to pipe up and say, well, Grandpa, which one wins? With a smile on his face, the grandfather takes a pause and says, well, the one you feed. Like, damn, does Grandpa have that good wisdom? That if we started challenging the bad wolf by leaning in to the good wolf, we can start overcoming these challenges. Now I started to wonder, what other areas could this go into? What other areas could I improve in? What other areas was I lacking the ability to hold myself to a standard, to a certain set of values that I was striving to hold? For me, at this time, this looked like wanting to stop watching porn. For others in this room, this might be not smoking pot every night. Maybe it's not drinking nightly or weekly with the boys. And as I started to lean into these challenges, without realizing it, I was aligning myself to this better version of who I was desiring to be. You know what's funny? Is that humans actually evolved this way. When we look at the layers of the brain, we can see three major sections of it. At the base, we have the brainstem. Some call this reptilian brain. Its main focus is survival. How can we keep the heart pumping? How can we let the lungs keep pumping air for us to breathe? Allowing it to flow. We don't have to think about this. The brainstem takes care of it. The next layer up, we have the subcortex. I call this the animal brain, the mammalian brain, if you will. I believe this is where the lower self resides, because if we look at how animals make decisions, they make decisions through three lenses. Does this provide safety? Does this provide security? Does this provide comfort? Now, when you look at yourself in the mirror and look at your lower impulses, all of them lead to one of those three things, if not all three. Now, luckily for us, as humans, as primates in here, we developed the prefrontal cortex, the human brain, if you will, the voluntary decision-making part of the brain. It can see a challenge, know that it's probably not going to be safe, may not be secure, and definitely will be uncomfortable, but if it knows the reward on the other side is worth it, it will go forth into that storm. Now, as a former researcher, I'd be remiss not to tell you the exact part of this brain. It's called the anterior mid-cingulate cortex, and don't worry, you're not getting tested on that. It is the seat of willpower in the brain. It grows every time we overcome a challenge. Sitting in ice baths like we did this morning, sitting in saunas, having a hard conversation with your wife, saying no to the late night munchies, it grows like a muscle in strength. I don't know if I'm making this clear enough to you or not. It grows every time we do hard things. Now, if fixing ourselves was as easy as sitting in an ice bath this morning, none of the coaches in this room would have a job. And I know it's frustrating when we know something is good for us, but it's very hard for it to stick. Building mindfulness helps create awareness in this aspect. If we don't have mindfulness, if we don't have the awareness, we will stay stuck in a rut, spinning our wheels, and living our life filled with frustration. Now, part of awareness is knowing where you're at in this process of change. We're all in this process of changing towards something. What's interesting is humans go through a very particular process. Back in the 1970s, two psychologists wanted to understand why some people were able to quit smoking cigarettes so easily and why others struggled immensely. Through their observations, they realized that humans go through 6 stages of change. These stages of change are pre-contemplation, contemplation, preparation, action, maintenance, and sometimes termination. Pre-contemplation, we're all in this stage, and we all know somebody in this stage. People in a pre-contemplation stage don't believe anything they're doing is wrong. They don't believe their habits not serving them. They're just kind of lost to the wind in that way. Now, eventually, whether it's a doctor's visit that says they're pre-diabetic, their blood pressure is so high they're going to have a heart attack within 5 years, they get some news that's going to change them to start contemplating, hey, maybe eating boxes of Rice Krispies every night is probably bad for me. They start thinking about, what does change look like? Do I start eating high protein? Do I start walking more? What does it look like? After enough contemplation, people will enter the stage of preparation. They start preparing to do things like, how do I eat more protein throughout the day? They start preparing to create that plan for them. They start thinking about, how do I add more walking in my day? They do this enough, they start preparing enough, and eventually they take action. Now, action's as simple as that sounds. They take action on what they prepared for. Pretty simple to remember there. Now, after about 6 months, they say that humans enter a stage of maintenance. The I made it stage is what I call it. Simply put, this habit is now part of their identity, it's part of their daily routines, and it's just what they do. Now, unfortunately, sometimes drastic things happen, tragic things happen, termination does happen. But we don't really talk about that here, all right? Now, as I describe this process as a one-way street, I want to encourage you to think about it as a roundabout. Humans will enter and exit these stages of change at any point, at any stage. And I think this is a great point to remind you guys that we're all in the process of changing something, whether we realize it or not. Please, just give yourself grace and understanding where you're at in this whole process. There's a common theme I'm trying to build within your understanding, that having awareness and utilizing mindfulness will help make your decisions painfully clear. But when it comes to nutrition, having awareness around your decisions on what's right and what's wrong can be confusing when you hear conflicting information about what is healthy and what is not. Eggs are good for you. Eggs are bad for you. Fruit makes you fat. Carbs are the best thing in the world. Now, I want to share this statement with you. Out of the 5 years I spent in college, 3 of them were in a research lab setting. My undergrad research mentor shared with me, because I asked him, I challenged him on something he said. He said, you know what, Dylan? Nutritional science has been around 100 or so years, a little over 100 years at this point now. The 100% of things we know to be true about nutrition, 50% of it's wrong. 50%. It's your job as a researcher, as a future dietitian at that time, to figure out what that 50% is. Now, a few things we know to be certain about nutrition. Yes, a high-protein diet is advantageous for overall health. Fruits and vegetables are always going to be ideal sources for your vitamins and minerals. Fad diets like keto, carnivore, paleo, veganism, whatever it is, will never be a blanket statement for everyone to adopt. Calories, yes, they do matter, and yes, they do count, even if you don't count them. They're simply a unit of measurement of energy within our bodies that we expend, as well as the energy within food and drinks that we consume. measure length, degrees Fahrenheit to tell if this room's hot or cold. Protein, it helps build, repair, and maintain cell structures. And as us meatheads always talk about it, we're talking about muscle structure here, baby. Fats help keep the body and maintain a healthy state. It literally just keeps the body functioning. Think hormone function, brain function, insulation, everything like that. Now, carbs, my absolute favorite. They're quick, easy, and the most efficient fuel source for the body. Matter of fact, they are the preferred fuel source for almost every cell in the body. And of course, how much we need to eat depends on our activity, on a general sense. If we move more, we need to eat more. If we move less, we need to eat less. And as I talk about all this, I want to remind you guys, and I want to make a point clear. We're all on social media and we all read a bunch of garbage every day about nutrition. There is no inherently good or bad foods. Yes, whole foods are going to be the ideal option. Why? Because they're nutrient rich, meaning we have more vitamins and minerals per calorie that we eat with them. They're going to be more satiating, and they're going to make us generally feel better. Processed foods, think of the complete opposite. Less nutrients, not satiating, going to make us feel like trash. And I say this to tell you with the understanding that everybody here and every body that we have operates differently. And I say this because we always hear it, steak's the best food ever, right? I have a handful of clients in my book that steak makes them feel sluggish and bogged down. So how can I tell them that steak is good for them? Now, I believe this is where mindful eating can come into play for many of us. Mindful eating, as we know, is also called intuitive eating. But one cannot mindfully eat if they are not comfortable enough deciphering their thoughts in their head or actually having a grasp on proper portion control. Because we can easily trick ourselves into eating the wrong things or too much of something because, well, my intuition, it told me to. We can't start out this way. We don't fully understand mindfulness until we spend time with ourselves. When we start building awareness of our thoughts, where they come from, and how we usually react to them, we will stay chained to them and ultimately a slave to those thoughts. Now, it makes sense when you hear the fact that humans have 12,000 to 60,000 thoughts a day. Crazy. Something else is crazy is 75% of those thoughts are geared to be negative, simply to protect you evolutionarily. The first step in deciphering these thoughts, you must give yourself that space. This can and often should look like what I mentioned before, spending 10 minutes first thing in the morning in silence, no distractions, no stimulation, nothing. Allow your thoughts and your mind to wander. I like to say your thoughts can be chaotic in nature. It makes sense when you don't ever give them time to breathe because you're constantly distracted. Things like ice baths, saunas, cold showers are great for learning how to overcome this challenge of the chaos in your mind. Why is that? Because simply put, when you overcome those challenges, you start to build trust in yourself, not to give in to those lower impulses like we experience today that, hell, I just want to get out because this water's freezing. When we connect to our breath, like Mr. Jay Azaltine showed us how to do today, we start nurturing ourselves in that chaos. Hey, dude, it's going to be okay. You got this. You're strong enough. Just power through it. You're going to be okay. It shuts down that chaos of the mind and gives us what we're all ultimately in search for, peace. Now, once that space is created, you learn the power of these thoughts. You can start deciphering your lower self from the higher self, that good wolf from the bad wolf, the angel from the devil on your shoulder. And we're here today because, we believe this conference can change us for the better. It can bring us closer to that higher self. And it's almost the same thing with mindfulness, that it starts making our choices painfully clear in our decision-making ability. The aspirations you have now have a bright light of them on who you desire to be. The thoughts of showing you who you can be. But when you start seeing the thoughts of who you can be, a gap starts to form from where you are to where you desire to be. This gap only closes when you start aligning yourself to the standards and the values of that higher self, that best version of yourself. We don't understand the true values we desire to have until we start understanding our emotions around the habits and the lower impulses that we have. So oftentimes it's not those bad habits that are ultimately bad for us, it's our emotions that lead us to react to go into those bad habits that are. Mindlessly allowing our feelings to feel like facts, allowing them to dictate what our action's going to be. And I'm here today to tell you feelings aren't facts. They're indicators something is off from baseline. And we start understanding these emotions that drive us into these lower impulses. It provides the proper juxtaposition to start guiding yourself to where the higher self is guiding you, where that best version of yourself you see in your eyes is leading you to be. Understanding the emotions that drive these actions starts creating that foundation to build that bridge, to bring you closer to who you desire to be, who you believe you can be. And this is where I believe value-based mindfulness comes into play. We start understanding the values we aspire to have. We can start understanding what a value-based action plan can start looking like to lead us and guide us into that. And I work with guys all the time, and it's mainly around nutrition and health. What are the values you feel like you're lacking in? Guess what the number one is I hear? It's discipline. How shallow of an answer almost. Because I want you to dig deeper into what that may be. It's not discipline. Maybe it's something like you're looking for stability, peace, resilience in your actions. That I know if I do X, it will lead me to Y, which will allow me to start living by whatever that value is you desire to have. Now, that value-based action plan will look different for everyone. You start understanding what it is when you start paying attention and understanding your emotions that drive you into these actions that lead you astray. And that value-based action plan looks different for everyone, and it's simple to create but difficult to implement. Why is that? Because life isn't stagnant, it's always changing. It's hard. But for the most part, we start seeing repeatable behaviors and start recognizing patterns. This allows us to start seeing the common barriers that usually get us in our way when we try to achieve something. Now, a deeper level of mindfulness needs to occur here. When we start using hindsight to create our foresight here. The awareness of having this, it understands that we see that the patterns start repeating ourselves, so we can start creating detours around the roadblocks that usually show up in our lives. But we can only understand what a detour can look like when we start understanding the emotions and the values that we desire to have. When it comes to nutrition, that value-based action plan can look relatively simple. It can be as simple as putting Post-it notes on your snack basket in your pantry saying, "Stop eating, fat ass, you ain't really hungry." It could be creating an easy follow meal plan, something like OMAD, 1 meal a day, right? It could be something bringing your significant other, your wife, into what you're trying to achieve and telling her the challenges you face to help help you keep accountable to what you say you desire to do. Now, my favorite when it comes to craving, popping a piece of gum, or as Michael Donatelli always tells us, just go brush your teeth, dude. They'll be over soon. Now, these actions themselves aren't magically going to make you more peaceful, say, but what they start doing is acting like gutter bumpers on a bowling alley that keep you aligned to hit your target dead on. And the more you follow that action plan, the more you feel as if you are that person. The more you can be that person. And the more being that person is actually authentically and unapologetically you. Now, I'm not here to promise you a rose garden at all. It will be hard. You will slip up. You won't want to fall into those old habits of the lower impulses. But if you stick to the process and commit to these changes, value-based mindfulness will fix this application issue you struggled with your whole life. It will bring you closer and stop you from robbing yourself of being who you intend to be and ultimately who God desired you to be. Now, in summary, value-based mindfulness comes down to a few things. You must slow it down and create the space. You must be vulnerable and understand your emotions. Seek the values you believe that best self of you has. Create that value-based action plan, communicate it with your loved ones, and ultimately trust the process. You were meant to be the person you always thought you could be, but always struggled to do. Value-based mindfulness will fix this application issue, and I promise you, it will solve it. Now, I want to thank you guys for your time. I printed out the story of the two wolves for you guys to frame up if you want. On the back of it, if you guys are interested, there is a value-based mindfulness PDF download for you to walk through this on your own, as well as a chance to schedule a free health strategy session with me to discuss your own problems if you like. I want to thank you guys for your time, your space, and your energy today. Love you guys. Thank you.